Hey everyone, I'm Asher, and welcome back to the Filmcast. Today I will be reading the next entry in the Cryptic Monster universe, The Rake. Without further ado, let's get started. Oh, before I begin, I would just like to say something. Happy Easter, everyone. Yes, I know it will definitely not be Easter by the time this video gets uploaded, but I felt it would be appropriate to acknowledge the holiday. So I hope you had a great day and spent time with your family, and didn't just stay inside and overdose on candy like I did. Okay, now let's get into The Rake. During the early 2000s, in the northeastern United States, a family of four consisting of a father, mother, son, and daughter are driving home. The children, Justin and Clara, are resting after a long day, while the parents, Dave and Amanda, talk about their favorite moments during the vacation. During their drive, the couple listens to a news broadcast on the radio talking about strange occurrences happening coincidentally in the northeastern area of the United States. These occurrences include citizens in rural neighborhoods mysteriously going missing. It also includes people hearing strange noises such as high-pitched roars in the middle of the night. Dave and Amanda seem intrigued by the story, but they decide to turn it off after Amanda turns around to see Justin and Clara sleeping. That night, the family arrives home and the children are put to bed, after which Dave and Amanda get in bed and fall asleep. At 4 in the morning, Dave wakes up and steals some of the blankets from the other side of the bed, but doing this accidentally wakes up Amanda. She turns over to face him, but suddenly gasps at something, much to Dave's confusion. Dave looks to where Amanda is staring, and at first only sees the darkness of the room, but after adjusting to the darkness, sees a figure sitting at the end of their bed, facing away from them. This figure is the Rake, a humanoid being with long arms, legs, and hands with long claws. The Rake has pale skin and is shaped like a human, but looks completely emaciated with visible bones from under its skin. The Rake also has a face similar in shape to a human, but has a hole in the place of a nose, and has eyes that are simply dark holes. The couple look on in horror as the Rake just sits there, and they whisper to each other on what to do and what this creature is. As if on cue, the Rake turns its head ever so slightly and faces the couple, staring at it in horror. Amanda quietly makes a single sound of fear, and suddenly the creature moves on all fours at incredible speed towards Amanda and stops just a foot in front of her face. Surprisingly though, the Rake manages to do all of this without making a sound. Amanda stares on at the Rake with shock, as if she's staring death itself in the face. Meanwhile, the Rake just looks into Amanda's eyes, and it suddenly places its claw onto her knee, and all she can do is look on in fear. The Rake suddenly jumps off the bed, and on all fours crawls out of the bedroom at incredible speed. Dave then realizes that the creature is running to the room Justin and Clara are sleeping in, so he jumps out of bed and runs after the creature, intending to stop it before it reaches his children. Dave rushes out and reaches the doorway to the kids' room, but pauses when he sees the Rake crouched on the ground. The Rake suddenly turns around to reveal its face covered in red, which seems to be blood, much to Dave's horror. The Rake then jumps at him, knocks him to the floor, after which it runs past him and runs down the stairs. Dave runs in to find Clara on the floor with heavy wounds across her body. Amanda rushes in and is in shock by the sight and rushes over to check on her daughter. Clara barely has the strength to talk, and when she looks at her parents, she mutters one sentence. "He is the Rake." What Dave and Amanda don't know yet is that this will be their daughter's last words. Amanda takes Clara and gets in her car to drive Clara to the hospital, while Dave stays at home to watch over Justin. A few hours later, Dave gets visited by a police officer who tells him that Amanda's car crashed in a river, and no one survived. This breaks Dave's heart. The next day, Dave watches the news talking about the death of Amanda and Clara, but the news suddenly changes subject, out of nowhere, and this frustrates David, but also confuses him. Cut to a few months later, Dave has been doing research to see if he can find any information on the creature that was in his house. Dave eventually finds a man who says he also encountered the Rake, and when the two meet, Dave finds out that there's many files relating to the creature, some of which date back to the 12th century. Together, Dave and the man, along with a few other people, collect information on the Rake with the plan to prove its existence to the world. One night, however, Dave finishes collecting all the data on his computer and prepares to publish his evidence for the world to see, when all of a sudden, a blackout occurs, knocking out power across the entire town. A few minutes later, the power comes back on, and when Dave gets his computer on, he finds, to his horror, that all of his data on the Rake is gone. Dave searches everywhere to find anything on the Rake, but finds nothing. Dave is disheartened as evidence has disappeared and decides to just go to sleep. Later that night, Dave wakes up to a horrific shrill. But when he looks around, doesn't see anything in his room. He then goes to check on Justin and finds him sleeping quietly in his bed. Dave goes back into his room and starts getting disturbed by the shrill he heard in his room, as it mysteriously brings him back to the night when the Rake ruined his life. As Dave falls asleep, he becomes worried that one day he will see the Rake again. And the story ends. So that was the Rake. You may have realized that this story was relatively short, but that's what I like about it. It's short and simple instead of long and complex, and the way I see it, those materials can still make an intriguing story. Well, that's all I have to say. Join me next time when I read part 5 of the Cryptic Monster Universe, Nancy's Goat Man. Until then, peace out.